Welcome to With One Accord, a brief time presented by the Houston Chamber Choir each Monday and Friday to join us together and to be renewed and refreshed through the power of choral music. I'm April Harris, Manager of Operations, and I'm thrilled to host today's Education Spotlight. Today's episode shines a spotlight on Dr. Zanaida Stewart Robles, acclaimed music educator based in Southern California. Dr. Robles characterizes herself as a fierce advocate for diversity and inclusion in music education and performance. Authentic interpersonal connection and relationship building are core principles of her teaching and performance methods. She serves on the National Board of the National Association of Negro Musicians and is chair of the Board of Directors of Tonality, a nonprofit organization that promotes peace, unity, and social justice through choral music performance in Los Angeles. Dr. Robles also serves her community as the leader of several school and church ensembles with members of all age groups. She is also currently a panelist for Her Voice, a choral composition competition for emerging women composers hosted by Chicago A Cappella and Kansas City Choral. It was a pleasure to speak with Dr. Robles and again be reminded of the talented and driven individuals that continue to create and share the beauty of choral music with our world. After the interview concludes, stay tuned for a beautiful choral music selection composed and conducted by Dr. Robles. Enjoy! So I'm joined today by a very special guest, singer, conductor, educator, and arts administrator, serving on the board for NANM, the National Association for Negro Musicians, and as board chair for the Los Angeles choral organization Tonality, Dr. Zanaida Robles. Dr. Robles, thank you so much for joining me today from the West Coast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so delighted to be here with you today.
Awesome. It's awesome to have you here. Now, in addition to teaching, you also have a very active career in choral performance. Can you tell me, when did your love for choral music begin?
Sure. I have always loved to harmonize ever since I was a very young child. And my first choral experience, what you might consider traditional choral experience, happened in high school. I went to the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts, and it was there that I was finally in a setting where I could be in a choir of singers who were my age, who had some skill. You know, it was a program for which you had to audition, and so it was like I didn't have to search for people who could do what I do and like what I liked. They were just right there. And so I loved harmonizing with my friends and all kinds of styles. And so that love sort of kind of developed throughout high school, and then of course throughout college, being in different chamber singers ensembles and going on choir tours and that sort of thing. And interestingly, it never occurred to me to consider making a career out of conducting or teaching or choral music. No, I was a performance major in my undergrad, and I did 1 year of opera performance major in graduate school. But the funny thing is, it's sort of not common for opera performance majors to still be in choir, and that was me. I couldn't stop being in choir, so it was sort of like something wasn't right here, you know, and as I was participating in that final year as a performance major in opera, you know, I went on a trip to a choir festival, and that's where I heard Paul Smith's Northridge singers from out of Cal State Northridge. They performed what went on to become their award-winning performance at the Choir of the World Festival in the Netherlands, in Wales. And but I saw that performance before they got there at this festival I was at as an opera major, kind of infiltrating the choir, right? Mm-hmm. And it was at that moment that I realized that I did not belong in opera. I belonged in choir. And so I went up to Paul Smith after that performance with tears in my eyes, and I said, I have to go study with you. I have to go. I need to be doing choral music. I need to conduct. I need to be surrounded by this all the time. I'm not an opera singer. I'm not an opera singer. And so I left a full scholarship in opera performance to go do something I'd never done before. I had never really conducted anything. I didn't really know anything about the choral field. I just knew that that's where I belonged. And so I followed Paul Smith to Cal State Northridge, and the rest is history. I've just been devoted to this field ever since, and I love it. I absolutely love choral music and the choral art.
Absolutely. That is such an amazing story, an intro to your love for choral music. Now, when it comes to performing in a choir or conducting a choir, do you have a preference, or is it like a I love both equally on a different way situation?
That's a great question. What an honor to be here to have to ponder these things. It's interesting. So, do I prefer to conduct it or to sing it? Um, Boy, they're so different, and yet they're so similar. There's so one really important thing as I got into my more advanced choral studies, particularly when I started doing my doctorate at USC. Um, it was like magic realizing how powerful your gesture can be, and then realizing how connected gesture your physical gestures with your hands and arms is connected so intimately with your voice, with your vocalism. And so I became a better singer because I started to learn how to be a better conductor, how to actually connect my body to my voice, to my music making. It's this idea of integration. And so it's almost like there's not really, it's hard to draw a line. You can't really, I conduct better when I sing, and I sing better when I conduct. I can't, it's hard to do them both at the same time because it requires so much brain power to do one or the other, but they're informed by each other. Um, and I would say that I'm most comfortable singing because I've been doing that forever. Like I love to harmonize. I'll harmonize anything, much to the dismay of friends who are like, I just want to hear the melody, but I'll just do it. I love it. But I think that conducting requires me to dig deeper and go into more uncomfortable places that ultimately invite sometimes a more fruitful experience, because I have to be vulnerable. I'm not comfortable in my body. I'm actually not particularly well coordinated physically. Which is why the conducting helped my singing so much, because I had to learn how to coordinate. I had to learn how to create shapes with my hands and with my elbows, and I had to, because if I didn't, I was did you know that you can actually really mess somebody up? You can really mess a singer up by showing them gestures that are not helpful.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I did not know that. Like you can you can control somebody's larynx just by going like this, like it's, and conductors aren't, I wasn't aware that I was doing these things. So by conducting, I became aware that, and my body needed to release tension in other areas, like particularly this area was an area of tension for my larynx. So once I realized that, I realized I was carrying a lot of tension here, and that was translating into
The
tension here. Isn't that
riff. Yeah.
crazy? It's like it's amazing, and just learning about hinges and everything.
It's amazing. It's like I guess I'll use a biology term, like a symbiotic relationship where it's
At least, yeah, for me it
mutually
is.
beneficial to each other. Absolutely. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's cool.
Now, let's briefly discuss your community involvement.
Mhm.
Your community outreach extends to several student as well as community choir organizations. Now, how many students do you usually work with and teach?
So as a performing arts instructor at Harvard Westlake School, so I'm a full time high school teacher. So I work with, I have about, I mean, because of the pandemic, numbers are kind of skewed, but in general, I tend to work with about 80 to 90 singers at the high school singers at my institution. In addition to that, I also work with um, singers at my church institution. I'm also the director of music at Neighborhood Unitarian Church, and so I work with about 30 adults on a weekly basis. And I have a small but growing youth chorus where I work with anywhere between, maybe 10 or so young people, sometimes 15 if the, different levels. So we're building that program. Um, and it's a great joy. And then, outside of that, just various interactions. If I, it's always an honor to do an honor choir or to do a guest conducting, or just different things where I might work with massive, large groups of students, hundreds of kids, or even just working with small groups, visiting classrooms. All of it is very life giving and enjoyable for me.
Yes, amazing. Now, have you found a particular tactic to be more effective when it comes to encouraging singers, both young and also adult singers, to stay in choir, and then also recruiting new singers to the organizations that you were involved in?
That's a really good question, and it's an area of growth for me. I haven't. There are some conductors and ensembles that are really great at recruiting. Recruiting is an area that I have to work on. What I do and what I think has kept people in my ensembles is I am conscious of being my authentic self. I can't be anybody other than me. And that person that you see in front of the ensemble is just full of energy and full of genuine love for the art form, and and just genuine love and appreciation for the people that are there to make them, with whom I'm making the music. It doesn't matter how old you are. I need the young people, the children, the kindergarten, K through 8, my high school students. I need everyone equally to make music, right? If my art form is conducting, I can do anything by myself. So I'm very, very gracious with my singers. I'm very affirming. I'm very conscious of creating healthy, inclusive spaces where all voices are valued and where my singers feel like they matter. I really try to avoid a hierarchical situation, except for where there's a need for, like, section leaders, and then in that case we're really kind of building teams, and so there's a lot of team building that goes into my work with every single ensemble at every single level, and I think that's been probably the most beneficial thing to retention and growth for my programs.
Amazing. Speaking of encouragement, you were announced as a panelist for an amazing mentorship and scholarship program for emerging women composers, Her Voice, hosted by Chicago Acapella and Kansas City Choral.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the competition?
Well, I'm one of three composers who are serving as kind of panelists and mentor composers for our, prospective applicants. And what's exciting to me, this is to my knowledge, this is kind of the first time that something like this has happened, where it's really geared to uplifting the voices of women composers, and putting women composers at the forefront of mentorship for that as well. And so from my perspective, it's a huge opportunity to not only engage and mentor, I just love, exploring composition with young composers and arrangers. It's really exciting to watch their ideas come to fruition. So I'm looking forward to that, but even more so, I'm looking forward to this collaboration and cooperation with these colleagues of mine, that I'll be working with, these composers that I admire, and so that there's not a lot more I can say about it because it's so new. I don't quite know what to expect, but I do look forward to all the applicants and hearing some amazing new compositions coming out of this program. I think it's going to be a wonderful experience.
Absolutely. And you mentioned there were other expert panelists that were a part of that. Would you mind mentioning their names of who they are?
Yes, I'm working on the Her Voices program with Stacy Garrop and Chen Yi, and I'm really, really excited about working with those two phenomenal composers and getting to know them through our work as we try to lift up other young composers coming through the program.
Absolutely. And is there a public event that we can look forward to when the compositions will be performed, or is it kind of still in development?
It's still in development. We're still processing applications and kind of figuring out how we want
Oh,
to
okay.
support and uplift these our composers. And as soon as we find out, we'll let you guys know.
Awesome. You are the board chair of Tonality, an organization that presents choral performances that thematically focus on major social justice issues such as homelessness, mental health, climate change, the list goes on. Now, can we briefly discuss you designing and Tonality's virtual 2020-2021 season? What are some of the highlights that you can share about creating the programming?
Sure. So, first of all, I have very little to do with creating that programming, except that I listen to the artistic director and say, yes, you're brilliant. You should do it. Our artistic director is Dr. Alexander Lloyd Blake. He's a very, very close friend and colleague of mine. We met at the University of Southern California in the doctoral program in choral music there at USC. And actually, we met before that too. We go back. So, but this organization has grown leaps and bounds from Alex's vision to just really what started out as bringing a diverse group of singers together that represented visually and from a cultural perspective what we kind of want to see in our world, you know. Um, and so from that it grew, and it became apparent that, you know, just by listening to the singers, beyond just wanting to be in a diverse community, we each have diverse experiences, and we're all aware of the different really major issues that people are really struggling with. And Alex has been about, you know, well, why don't we use this space, this forum, as a way to explore and discuss and tell stories. One of the main tenets of Tonality's success is this idea of storytelling that Alex really expertly does with every concert, every performance. So fast forward to our 2020-2021 virtual season, which we had to do, of course, because of the pandemic. No one knew what to expect. I think a lot of choral organizations were sort of kind of, you know, just trying to keep their heads above water. But because of all of the social and political unrest that's happened over the year, you know, kind of exacerbated by COVID and just everything just kind of coming out, you know, um, it really fueled Tonality's creative process and resources. And what we had already been doing sort of came into the limelight um, as a model for what other ensembles, organizations, you know, et cetera, could be doing to shine a light on important issues that we really need to start paying attention to, as opposed to just kind of doing pretty music for music's sake, you know. Really telling stories, really saying something important. And the pandemic gave us an opportunity to tell those stories in video form. Tonelli's always had phenomenal access to videography and graphic design. And that's all just, I honestly don't know how Alex found these brilliant people to do this work, but Alex, the artistic director, I mean, he's got the vision, and then somehow he gets people to realize this vision, and you have these gorgeous videos. And so as a result, now we probably, you know, I don't know how many videos we've actually done. I've lost count, to be honest. I just know that every single one of them is absolutely stunning. We've probably done about an album's worth of music videos, which is more. We never planned to have that, and now it's a huge asset for us to tell our story far and wide, and also to bring more people into the Tonality family so they can see what work we do when we're live, because the live concerts are just indescribably moving and beautiful, and always center the stories of the people who are represented on stage.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And you mentioned Dr. Blake. He was just awarded Chorus America's Louis Botto Award for Innovative Action and Entrepreneurial Zeal.
Yes, he was. I knew he was going to get
it. Yes. And
yeah.
the impact that Tonality, that this amazing group is making in their community.
Yes.
So, are there any ideas Tonality has used this season that you really loved that you would want to pursue again for future artistic seasons? Something that really stood out, captivated you, that you're like, we need to continue this for as long as possible?
You know, I just feel like Tonality's trajectory has been, you know, just miraculously on point. Like we've been headed in a direction that is fruitful and generative, and I just want to see us continue to move in that direction. Do we want to have a full virtual season ever again? No. you know um but do we want to continue creating quality video content and telling, creating these beautiful lyric videos that tell stories that desperately need to be told through immaculately performed choral music? Yes, absolutely. We need to continue to do that. We don't need to do as many because we need to focus on our live performances, and we just want to take our message further. We want to tour. We want to do more albums. We want to travel. We want to be guest artists. We want to be collaborators with other organizations, so that our voices can help amplify other people's voices that need to be heard. Um, so it's not so much that we want to take any ideas that worked, into we'll keep doing it. It's more, we want to take the fuel that we have from it and let that fuel us into action going forward, so that we can just keep this ball rolling.
Remarkable. Now, are there any other projects we can look forward to, either from you or any of your affiliate organizations?
Um, that's really hard to say. Everybody still kind of has COVID brain, right? And we're all trying to figure out. I think now I'm sort of assessing where we've been and what we've all been through. And I'm thinking about that organizationally. I'm thinking about that in terms of being an educator, what I've learned about education, and how my classroom has changed, how my teaching has changed as a result of this experience being virtual this whole year. And we're crafting the next projects right now with taking what we've learned and taking our experiences forward with us as we craft them in this moment. And so I guess the answer is stay tuned. I don't know yet. I don't know yet, but it's going to be, but I will say this, I'm really, really excited. I'm super motivated. I'm probably more motivated now than I've ever been as an artist. One thing we didn't really talk much about that is kind of an important development in my life is my work as a composer. So I've been doing a lot more composing. And a lot of it is related to my work with tonality not only being a place where I can exercise, my passion for advocacy for choral music, but I can also exercise my artistic expression through composition. And it's thanks to tonality that several of my works have gotten out. And so I'm continuing to explore that. So creatively, that's sort of a direction that me personally, I'm sort of starting to explore a lot more than I was before. So I'm really looking forward to that avenue, the composition avenue, to kind of go alongside all of the other stuff and just kind of expanding this beautiful choral life that seems to be evolving.
Absolutely. Dr. Robles, thank you so much for sharing this information, for the discussion about just how you're able to express yourself creatively, how you're able to help other individuals express themselves and to join together and to keep the music going. Simple as that. Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing a lot more about all of your endeavors, as well as with tonality and her voice competition. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Special thanks to our donors and partners for their consistent support, to our phenomenal guest, Dr. Zanaida Stewart Robles, and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. And now, please enjoy a beautiful children's chorus performance of Umoja, composed and conducted by Dr. Zanaida Stewart Robles. Houston Chamber Choirs with One Accord is your one-stop shop for choral joy. If you enjoyed this podcast, help us to continue our mission to grow the esteem and appreciation of choral music by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to our content. As a 501c3 nonprofit, support from listeners like you allows us to continue making new and exciting programming. For more information about us and how you can support our work, please visit houstonchamberchoir.org/give.